Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to understanding complex topics, really digging into the information that matters.
And today, we're diving into something truly ancient Ayurveda. It's a 5,000-year-old system for well-being.
Right. And our source material is a great conversation between Mona Sharma, she's an Ayurvedic expert who actually grew up in an ashram, and Dave Asprey on his Human Upgrade platform.
Yeah, it was a fascinating discussion. Our mission here is really to pull out the core wisdom of Ayurveda.
And see how it stacks up, with our modern lives and health understanding. We want actionable stuff. How can these ancient practices actually help you today?
Exactly. We're sticking close to their conversation, trying to bridge that gap between tradition and today's world.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What is Ayurveda fundamentally?
Well, at its heart, it's this incredibly holistic approach. It sees the body, the mind, and the spirit as completely interconnected. One whole system.
Not just separate parts then, like sometimes happens in conventional medicine.
Precisely. It's less about isolating symptoms and more about understanding the whole person, the whole integrated system, and finding balance within it.
Mona Sharma called it old biohacking. Is that a helpful way to think about it?
I think it is, actually. It kind of highlights that Ayurveda has always been about optimizing well-being, just using practices honed over millennia.
Right.
And what's really interesting is how some of these things, like using ghee, clarified butter, modern science is now starting to catch up and validate some of the benefits.
He's got this incredible history, thousands of years. But, we live in such a data-driven age. How do we square that ancient wisdom with a more scientific perspective?
That's a really important point. Modern science looks for, repeatable, quantifiable data. Ayurveda, on the other hand, evolved through centuries of direct observation and lived experience.
Experience from practitioners.
Exactly. People like Mona Sharma, who've spent, 15 years or more seeing these practices work for countless individuals, there's real value in that kind of empirical experiential evidence alongside the scientific studies.
So it's not necessarily one or the other.
Not at all. They can
Yeah.
be complementary. Scientific understanding can shed light on why something works, while the traditional wisdom offers practices refined over ages.
Okay.
And you have to remember, in many cultures, these aren't like separate treatments. Ayurvedic ideas are just woven into daily life, growing certain herbs, eating specific ways, following natural rhythms.
And it always comes back to this idea of balance, doesn't it?
Always. Balance
Okay.
is key.
Okay, let's dig into some of the specifics then. What are some core Ayurvedic practices or concepts?
Well, breathwork and meditation are absolutely foundational.
Hmm.
Mona really stressed how, in her ashram upbringing, the breathing exercises pranayama were perhaps even more central than the asanas, the physical yoga postures we often focus on in the West.
Really? More than the poses?
Yeah, because the breath is seen as this direct way to influence the nervous system, to build resilience, to manage your internal state.
So the breath itself is the tool. That's interesting.
Definitely. And then there's the whole concept of circadian biology.
Aligning with natural cycles.
Exactly. Waking up early, tuning into the light and dark cycles. Ashram life was built around that. Our bodies have these innate rhythms, and Ayurveda says we need to honor them.
Makes sense.
There's a really fascinating practice called Nadi Pariksha, pulse diagnosis.
Pulse diagnosis, how does that work?
Well, highly skilled practitioners can apparently feel very subtle variations in the pulse at different points on the wrist. And from that, they can understand the state of different organs and systems.
Wow.
Yeah, and based on that, they might prescribe interventions, maybe working with specific energy points on the body called marma points to restore balance.
So it's like listening really closely to the body's own language.
A very refined form of listening, yes. They also use tongue and eye examinations, looking for visual signs that reflect what's going on inside.
That feels very different from, MRIs and blood tests.
It is a different paradigm, for
Huh.
sure. But it comes from this deep, intricate understanding of how everything in the body is connected and reflects everything else.
Okay. What else is key?
Detoxification's another big one, panchakarma. Mona mentioned how they use ghee traditionally in some of those cleansing protocols.
Ghee for detox.
Yeah. And underlying a lot of this is the focus on regulating the nervous system, helping us shift out of that constant fight or flight or hypervigilance that seems so common now.
Hypervigilance. Yeah, that definitely resonates. So how does Ayurveda help with modern stuff like, all the stress and anxiety we face?
It offers a whole toolkit, really, specifically for nervous system regulation. Mona actually shared her own story about having atrial tachycardia, a heart rhythm problem.
Right, I remember that. And conventional medicine offered things like beta blockers.
Beta blockers, yeah, and even a potential ablation procedure. But those were focused just on managing the heart symptoms.
And she mentioned side effects, didn't she? Like weight gain, feeling tired.
Exactly. Those drugs had system-wide effects. But the things she did back in the ashram environment, chanting, meditation, the breath work, getting her sleep cycle right, those addressed the underlying
Oh,
issues.
she was with her nervous system.
Yes. And her digestion, even her cellular energy, what we'd now call mitochondrial health, it was a much more holistic approach to why her heart was having issues in the first place.
Addressing the root cause, essentially.
Precisely. And this ties into what science is now exploring more, too. Things like the heart's own biofield, the electromagnetic field, and how much our emotions really impact our physical health.
It does feel like there's this convergence happening, bringing ancient insights together with modern science.
Absolutely. I think there's a growing awareness that a purely sort of Newtonian problem fix approach to health has its limits. We need a broader perspective.
And science is exploring things that align with Ayurveda now.
Definitely. Look at all the research on the vagus nerve, for example. That huge nerve connecting the brain to the gut and organs, its role in regulating our nervous system state is becoming so clear. And Ayurveda has effectively been working with that concept for thousands of years.
The vagus nerve, yeah, it comes up so much in wellness discussions now.
It's central. Mona also touched on the idea of genetic transfer of trauma, how experiences might echo down generations. She didn't detail a specific Ayurvedic view on that exact modern concept, but it certainly prompts questions about ancestral influences on our health.
Which Ayurveda might have its own ways of thinking about, perhaps.
Perhaps, but the big takeaway really is understanding your own nervous system, learning to recognize when you're in that hypervigilant state and having tools to shift out of it.
Like Mona realizing her calm exterior didn't match her internal state?
Exactly. She looked calm, but inside, her system was on high alert. So she talked about practical things, specific breathing techniques, practicing gratitude, using mindfulness apps. She mentioned one called Lotus Bud, and just paying more attention to your body's signals, listening in.
And we even have modern tech that mirrors this ancient wisdom now, right?
Yes, heart rate variability, HRV, it's a metric you can track now that basically shows how adaptable and resilient your nervous system is. Good HRV means good vagal tone, which is exactly what Ayurveda aims for, a balanced, responsive system.
So it's not just physical then. The mind seems crucial in Ayurveda too.
Oh, completely. Healing isn't just about what you eat or how much you exercise. Your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotional patterns, they're all part of the picture.
How do you work with that?
Mona mentioned things like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and timeline therapy. These are techniques to help uncover and shift limiting beliefs or process old emotional stuff. She called it parenting your inner child.
Parenting your inner child, that's a powerful idea.
It is. It's about healing those past emotional imprints. She even mentioned a visualization technique, the circle of excellence, to consciously cultivate positive emotional states. It really taps into that mind-body connection.
It's amazing how relevant this feels, even for, say, high performers dealing with intense pressure today.
Yeah, Mona works with people in really demanding fields. She mentioned Will Smith as an example. Her approach isn't just about tweaking biology with supplements or diet.
It's more integrated.
Totally. It combines looking at biological data, sure, but also understanding someone's deep personal values, their emotional state, their stressors. It's about building resilience and well-being from the inside out to support that high performance sustainably.
So what does that look like practically? She talked about building your ashram at home.
Right. It's a multifaceted approach. It involves looking at detoxification, not just food, but your environment, cleaning products, personal care stuff. Then optimizing your bedroom for amazing sleep.
Sleep is huge.
Crucial. Then personalizing nutrition and supplements based on your specific needs and weaving in those emotional and spiritual practices, meditation, maybe some yoga or movement that feels good. It's about creating a supportive ecosystem for your body.
And the underlying idea is that the body wants to heal.
Yes, the body has this incredible innate intelligence and capacity for healing if we just give it the right conditions and support.
Okay, so for someone listening, maybe feeling intrigued, where's a good place to start? I hear about these doshas a lot in Ayurveda.
Ah, yes, the doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. They're really fundamental. Think of them as unique energetic blueprints or constitutions. They're linked to the elements in nature like air, fire, water, earth.
So like personality types or body types.
Kind of, but more like dominant tendencies or influences. Everyone has all three, but usually one or two are more prominent and shape your physical and mental characteristics.
Can you give a quick example?
Sure. So Vata, linked to air and ether, tends to be light, creative, energetic. But if it's out of balance, maybe you feel anxious, scattered, dry skin, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Kapha, earth and water, is more about structure, stability, groundedness. Unbalanced, it might look like lethargy, congestion, maybe holding on to weight or emotions.
Got it. And Pitta?
Pitta is fire and water. Think-driven, focused, intense, warm, out of balance, maybe irritable, inflammatory issues, heartburn, easily frustrated.
Right. So we all have this unique mix, and the goal is to keep them in balance.
Exactly. Imbalances happen due to diet, stress, lifestyle, seasons. Mona suggested people could check out dosha quizzes online, like Deepak Chopra has one, just as a starting point to get a feel for their own tendencies.
But it's not about getting locked into a strict dosha diet.
No, she emphasized that. It's more about understanding the principle of balance and learning to listen to your own body. What foods make you feel good? What drains you? It's about self-awareness.
That feels much more empowering than just another set of food rules.
Right. The focus really shifts towards things like whole, unprocessed foods, lots of fiber, phytonutrients, getting enough healthy fats, quality protein, kind of moving beyond the noise of all the diet wars.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that we are different. What works for one person might not work for another. There might even be value in considering foods that resonate with your ancestry or your specific constitution.
Were there any specific food things Mona mentioned? Like people always ask about beans or lentils.
Yes. She did talk about lentils and digestion. The key, she said, is proper preparation, soaking them well. Maybe adding certain spices makes them much easier on the system for most people.
Good tip. Anything else dietary?
She briefly touched on Jainism, which has very strict dietary rules, and how Ayurveda might see therapeutic uses for certain food restrictions in specific contexts. It's nuanced.
Okay. What about some slightly less common health indicators, like body odor?
Yeah, that came up. In Ayurveda, strong body odor can be seen as a sign of imbalance, maybe toxins, called ama, building up. Mona shared that she personally doesn't need deodorant, which she links to her internal balance.
Interesting.
And she also mentioned, observing urine as a health indicator, which is traditional Ayurveda. Dave Asprey brought up a more unconventional therapy related to urine components, and the connection was made back to the body's own signaling compounds.
Definitely a different perspective on bodily functions. And allergies, that's such a modern epidemic.
Right. She contrasted how common allergies are now versus historically. She suggested it might be worth auditing your environment, looking at potential toxins like phthalates in plastics, chemicals in cleaning supplies, things that could be burdening the system.
Food for thought there. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Ayurveda, what are the main things you'd want our listener to walk away with?
I think the big picture is that Ayurveda offers this incredibly rich, 5,000-year-old holistic way of looking at health. It's all about balance, regulating your nervous system, and really learning to listen to your body's own wisdom.
And it's not about choosing between ancient wisdom and modern science.
Not at all. It's about integration, taking these timeless principles and combining them with what we understand scientifically today to create a really personalized, powerful path to well-being and even high performance.
It really does sound like a very personal journey.
It absolutely is. And hopefully this gives you a solid starting point if you're curious to explore more.
Definitely. So as you go about your day-to-day, maybe just take a moment, tune in. What signals is your body sending you? And maybe think, what are 3 non-negotiable things you could prioritize, starting now, to really support your overall well-being?
Yeah, and maybe consider this final thought. What if reconnecting with that deep, innate wisdom of your own body is actually the most powerful, the most fundamental biohack there is?